hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Um, I was just emailing back and forth with a filmmaker in Iran. Is that filmmaker here? The filmmaker from Iran? It's apparently midnight over there. I don't know what you're doing awake at this time of night. Um, anyway, I just wanted to say I so appreciate it. I just so love it when we have people showing up from all over the world. It's really fabulous, fabulous. And so for those of you who are here, thank you so much for coming. I'm just going to take a look at everybody who's here. Yay! Hello, filmmakers from America, from all over the world. Good to have you here. My name is Joanne Butcher. Some of you know me, some of you don't. You'll know me by the end. So is anybody here from outside America who would like to say hello? You can raise your virtual hand. Hi, Ramel. Or you can raise your, there, I think, is that the person? Who is here from outside America? Dr. Alberta is here. Who else is here from outside the country? Oh, I'm not looking at the chat. Maybe that's why I can't see. Who is here from outside of America? Manos, I think, is from outside America. Dr. Alberta is here from Trinidad. Oh, she raised her virtual hand. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And of course, welcome to everybody in America. Welcome to you all. My name is Joanne Butcher, and we tonight are going to be talking about the things to think about when you're making your very, very first feature film. And as I always, when I talk to filmmakers, I'm always just like amazed at what filmmakers are thinking about and what you actually need to be thinking about. And before we get started, I just wanted to put the link, the 26th and 27th of May, I believe, is that right, Lexi? It's a Thursday and Friday. I'm going to be having another 2-day workshop. We did a 2-day workshop in February, I believe, that was called Money Mindset. And we took a deep dive into the kind of mindset shifts that filmmakers need to make to be able to be successful in their filmmaking. And this workshop is going to go through the 7 steps that you need to take when you're making your feature films, mostly. I always have filmmakers who are making shorts. You're all welcome, and eventually you're going to get to making a feature, so watch out. And today we're going to look at making your first feature, and the things that I hear all the time from filmmakers are that they're always thinking about the craft, which is great. That's what you're supposed to be thinking about. My script, my actors, my crew, my locations, all of those sides of filmmaking. Those are the things that you're supposed to be thinking about. However, that is not actually going to be what's going to carry you through making your first feature. So by a show of hands, digital or actual, who here has already made a feature film? Is that Karen? Is that your hand raised? No, that's a door behind you. I thought that was your raised hand. Um, we do have some people who've already. Nani, she raised her hand. She's already made a feature film. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So the question I would like to start with for all of you, and maybe if you've, no, you know what? I'm going to start with the people who have already made a feature film. What was the aspect of making your first feature film that took you by surprise, that you sort of had not prepared for, or maybe you had prepared for it, but not enough? What was the what was the most surprising thing to you about making your first feature? Why don't we start with Lexi? Because
Can you guys hear me?
yes,
Okay. I've
your
been
fancy headset is working.
I was trying to think about that. I don't know. I think maybe just like the level of intensity, which is like a very vague way of putting it. But in terms of everything, like I guess I don't want to get too ahead of things, but like the people management side of it, like the being like we're working with like real money and like real people's lives and yeah, just like and then just the intensity of the work required, I think. So just the intensity level in general.
Yes, yes, because when you've been making shorts, as you had been making many, many, many shorts over time. It feels as though that's filmmaking, and then when you step up to making a feature, it's just such a different level. Leanne, what surprised you making your first feature?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. It's good to be here. Everyone can hear me, hopefully?
Yes.
Okay, great. I would say, I hope this isn't the case for everyone, but there was a point, a really pivotal moment where we lost our DP because of a scheduling conflict soon before shooting. He had come on the scout with us, and we lost him, which he had warned us, schedules. So we knew it could happen, and it did. And also we were waiting on a big piece of funding. And I think there was really a moment where we were very close to production where it really felt like the whole thing was held together by duct tape and popsicle sticks. It really felt like we were trying to build this house with like tape and like we had to like live in this house, but all we had was popsicle sticks. And I just remember telling that to people around me, and but you have to put on this feeling of just like it's going to happen no matter what. It's going to happen regardless. So I think having that juxtaposition of the feeling of like Lincoln Logs, but you're like, it's a real cabin. It was a very interesting place, and you kind of just have to keep moving forward, find the new DP, and do your best to get the financing you need, and have a bit of false bravado at times. Not that you're saying anything that isn't true, but just saying, yeah, we're good. And it ended up working out. So.
And how did you find a DP that you could work with in that short space of time?
Oh gosh. I think we ended up connecting with an agent who reps DPs. There were a couple agents through a couple of, not like UTA or WME, but Sandra Marsh agency. There were a couple of smaller boutique agencies, and we ended up connecting with the agents. And they just started sending us people. So I would get on all these Zoom calls and meet a bunch of folks. And then we found Luca, who was the best fit for this project.
As it turned out, did Luca feel as though you were really happy that that was how it worked out?
Oh, yes. I think he was completely like our first choice was great. I think Luca was the best person for the position. So it also is like, it'll work out.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. Nani, can you share with us what took you by surprise about your first feature?
Yes, hello,
Hi.
everyone. Well, I think, it was my first time working with a bigger budget and probably recouping that budget and the distribution side of things was the biggest challenge for me. I mean, there were many challenges along the way, but it felt like, those were things that could be resolved in the moment. And I think distribution is something that, is kind of an afterthought for most filmmakers. And I have a close friend who runs a distribution boutique, and he always says, it should really be like one of the first thoughts. So starting a film with a distribution strategy in mind is probably the best way to go. And so that was a big learning experience for me on my first feature.
And how did that all turn out, that whole process of recouping?
Well, I mean, I ended up doing educational distribution through CAM, so Center of Asian American Media, and I wouldn't say that we recoup the costs necessarily, but it's out there and it's available for institutions to rent and purchase and whatnot. So I guess there's still the potential for recouping those costs.
Right, right. So good to see you on video, Nani. I think this is
Yes,
the time. Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. And
sure.
that was a fantastic setup for what I'm going to talk about to start with, because the thing that filmmakers are not thinking about, which I believe is the absolute number one thing that you need to be thinking about, is distribution before you make your film. So I'm going to tell a story. I think I'm not going to name the film unless everybody promised not to call the filmmaker up and say, Joanne told us all this. No, I'm not going to name the film. Anyway, I was mentioning this the other day. I met a lovely filmmaker when I was living in San Francisco who just did a fantastic job with his first feature. The DP was amazing. After the DP shot the film, his career just took off. He was gone, really, making big budget films and, doing very, very well. Absolutely great work from Poland, I think it was. But you could see the level of expertise and training that the DP had. The directing was good, the acting was good, the locations were really nice. He had a local composer and musician who brought all kinds of amazing creativity to the music and the sound. That was fantastic. There was some very interesting locations that were involved. There was a club that was part of the story that doesn't exist anymore. And I went to the premiere, and I went to see it at the Roxy, and all the crew and the cast were there and everything. And if it hadn't have been for the fact that I was there to support the filmmaker and watch the film, I would never in a million years have made it through the entire 90 minutes or so of the film. The film was absolutely unwatchable. And, I don't think it was because it was a micro-budget film. I have seen, multi-million dollar pictures with A-list actors that are pretty bad. I'm sure we all have. So what is it? What went wrong? What went wrong with this film that had so many components that were just great, absolutely great. Can anybody take a stab at guessing, what maybe didn't work about this film? I've listed all the things that did work. What maybe didn't work about this film? What was it that made it so hard to sit through that whole hour and a half of my life that I will never get back? Does anybody have any ideas? Rolf. Rolf and then Leanne.
I'm just going to guess terrible or poor cinematography.
No, the cinematography was
Oh,
awesome.
sorry, I must have missed it.
Cinematography was awesome.
Okay.
Actually,
Oh, well, second guess, probably Leanne's going to get this audio, terrible audio. I don't know.
audio. Okay. No, that was good too. I think all the technological stuff was very well done. I believe that the filmmaker was Polish and had the film school in Poland contribute. So technologically speaking, there was a lot that was very, very good about it.
Right.
Leanne, but good guess. Thanks for playing. Leanne.
An idea could be like tonal inconsistency, like it thought it was one thing but was kind of another, and tonally was off.
That's very good, because when I think about some big budget films that I've seen that are off, it tends to be that, that was a good one. Marilyn, what's your thought?
I think maybe not knowing the audience.
Yes. Could you say a bit more?
Well, sometimes the DP or the cinema, well, the whole filmmaking crew doesn't really understand who the audience is, and maybe sometimes even the writer doesn't know who the audience is when they're writing it. They're not clear. Like on a horror film, you're not going to write for a comedy type of an audience. Same thing you know on a comedy. You're going to write for that particular type of an audience, and maybe that didn't happen, and then the characters are weak and a lot of things don't happen because you don't know you're maybe the script wasn't written for the audience. I guess that's what I'm going to say.
Ah, let's see about that.
The characters.
The characters, yeah. But something you just said was honing in, I think. Rolf, did you have another? Were you going to go again?
I'm just going to make a silly one. I'm going to say it was in Polish, but so I know that's not the correct
It
answer.
was in Polish with no
Yeah,
subtitle.
right. I know that's
No.
not the answer.
No, that was not the answer, but I like it. I like it. Somebody in the chat got it. Brandon, can you come and say what you think might have been the problem?
Hey, excuse my audio out in the gym. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, the plot, I don't think it had it wasn't sure what type of story that it wanted to tell. I think there was a bunch of themes that I feel like a lot of storytellers get messed up in. It's like not sure what are we saying here, and what's the story that we're trying to tell here. And I think that, especially like for me in post, I figured that out. Just like I want to make sure I have that, but I think that sometimes it misses out like who's your audience, but also like what are you saying here, and what do you really want to get to the root?
Yes, I think that's really good. And that is pretty much always the issue. So the main issue is going to be the script. You know, Marilyn says not connecting to characters, so it's somewhere in there, script and characters. You know, so I was telling who was that? I was telling one of my clients the other day that they had created a character that was so interesting that I really didn't care what they did. I just wanted to hang out with that character, you know. I have a client whose film came out just a year ago next month, and it's about these two young women who are complete, how do I say this without swearing? They're a mess. They are a complete mess. And they inherit their grandfather's detective firm, and because their grandfathers died, and these two young women, I mean, one of them's a total alcoholic, one of them just got dishonorably discharged from the military. They hate each other. They're like this, you know, they just want to sell the business, sell the building, get the money, get out and get away from each other. And then they realize that the grandfathers have been murdered, and now they have to get to work out their differences so they can work together and solve the murder. But these two women, they are so much fun to watch in their complete mess of a relationship and in their lives. I said to him, you know, he was always worrying about the plot. And I said, you know, who cares? These women are so interesting and so much fun that it doesn't matter what they do. You know, it really doesn't matter. And so in the end, we had to really pare down the script and get the story to be, you know, a narrative that you could follow, so that we could hang out with these women for an hour and a half and enjoy their complicated lives that they made very complicated all by themselves, you know. And that film is now being shopped in Hollywood as a series, you know. And whatever the cases are that they solve, you know, everybody knows the term, you know, the Hitchcock term, the MacGuffin. You know, they'll be on a case, they'll be chasing a MacGuffin, but that's not really the point. The point is seeing them at loggerheads, seeing them trying to solve that, seeing them. One of the things I loved about them is they're both very masculine. One's from the army, one's from the police, and they don't know how to do feminine. That's really fun about them. So that's one thing. And in this particular film, the central character wanted to be a comedian, but in the story, he never actually gets on a stage. He fantasizes about being on stage, but he never gets on a stage. And he actually, for the most part, stays at home masturbating. And I just remembered this story the other day because I remember I mentioned it. I was thinking that other people would remember when I said about this. That we didn't see any masturbation, right? That wasn't, it was just that he stayed at home and he did nothing. Can you already see that there's a problem with this story? The guy has a dream that he never fulfills, that he always manages to not move forward on his dreams. How hard is it going to be to create a story where somebody doesn't actually achieve anything that they want to achieve and doesn't actually leave their house, basically, right? So it was meant to be a comedy. I think it was meant to be funny. It wasn't funny, and it just was a complete dud. If anybody wants to find out and watch it, it is available on Amazon for 99 cents.
After that recommendation, how could I resist?
How could you? So, but the problem with it, how would you suggest that we took that story that's well, it's not a story. It's like a not story. How do we take that not story and turn it into something that could be fun to watch? What would you do if I gave you the job? Rolf, go ahead.
One of the screenwriting 101s is to give a character an arc, a character arc, so he actually changes from something into something else by the end. I'm not a believer you have to have that. Perhaps if there are other story elements that are strong and interesting enough, but clearly this was a major fault that really bothered you, that there's no movement in the story. You've got to go from A to B. Something has to happen. So to me, in this case, if it's a character that doesn't show any progression or change as a result of the story, that seems to be you've zeroed in on the issue with it. So that would be my obvious first suggestion.
Yes. I think the character has to grow and change in some kind of way, even in comedy. The characters grow. What else could you do? What else could you do to make this story?
This is Jazz. I think I would either not have the character masturbating or have the character masturbating in the beginning, but then he finally gets out of bed and be productive. Yes. Even if he comes back at the end with a dark twist and start back masturbating at the end, but he made something of himself, well, and maybe fall back into it.
He's got to get somewhere for us to invest in the character. He's got to address his challenges. He can address his challenges and fail even, but you can't have a character that just doesn't get anywhere, So in this particular story, we have problems both with the plot, which is non-existent, and with the character who doesn't actually grow, doesn't actually change. So either one of those, we could fix that. Now, what do you think you would need in terms of budget to fix this problem in this film? Rolf, it looks like you're the only one who's going to be answering any questions. I'm going to be calling on names.
Well, I mean, on the surface, unless there's any other hidden variables, it sounds like there's no additional budget requirement other than spending a bit longer in the script. And that's one of my bees in my bonnets, is it costs essentially nothing to keep working on your script. So some famous guy once said, how much does it cost to buy a pencil and a pad of paper? You know, a few cents or whatever. And obviously time equals money in some people's eyes, but if you're a person who has your own time to spend on it, then keep working on the script. It's costing you nothing. So why would anyone begin planning to make a film until the script is perfect? Unless, of course, you're paying by the hour professional writer. That is a different scenario. So in theory, hypothetically, it costs you literally nothing. And then in terms of budget in the film, if he has to go to new locations or do some stuff, then yeah, it might bloat your budget a little bit more. You might need new locations or something. But if he's essentially changing but no new locations are required, then yeah, it costs nothing, right? I don't know.
And you know, sometimes I'll be watching something that's made for, you know, millions of dollars, and I'll just be like, wow, couldn't they have just got
this how did this get greenlit? Yeah.
How could they move forward when it's just not right, you know? And I don't like to use the word perfect because I'm not sure perfect exists. But there are lots and lots and lots of ways that you can figure out if your script is working or not. You know, you can get a script reading together, have actors reading your script. You can, one of the things we do with my clients is we get feedback from a group of filmmakers who are actually making films, which I think is really useful, you know. But if you're writing your script and then going and shooting the movie without having shown that to other people and got that kind of feedback, because I mean, it would have been obvious, I think, to anybody, you know, reading that script. I remember seeing another film that it was a film about a man who was sort of at this crossroads in his life, and he, on the one hand, was sort of heading towards gang life and crime and things like that, and on the other hand, you know, he meets this young woman and he kind of falls in love, and she really doesn't want anything to do with him because she knows he's not a good guy, and but there's this sort of, you know, going back and forth, and then we get to about the end of Act 1, and there's a big shootout just a block away from the young woman's office. And then we see a big title card that says 6 months later, and they're on a date at the beach. I'm like, what? What just happened? You know,
serious budget cuts there. Wow.
Yes. So in that case, I think it was more, this was a first feature. They really hadn't sort of done their planning properly, and they got caught up and they didn't really know how to fix it except cut, you know, and but again, it could have been fixed at the script stage. So anytime that you're working on your feature film, make sure, as I said, I don't want to suggest there's such a thing as a perfect script, but I do think that there are ways that you can get input from other people to make sure that your script is in the right place before you go out and shoot it, and take the time to do that. It's not so much about you being in a room by yourself rewriting. It's about making sure that other people have read it, other people have given you feedback, and also that it's feedback that's not really about
Hey guys, go check out Artlist new.
I just pressed something. I don't know what happened. And you can really, you can also enter your script into competitions and see how it does there, you know. So a lot of people get feedback from script doctors. I think that's great, you know, that's fine. but script doctors tend not to be thinking about filmmaking and distribution, which is what I'm always thinking about. So I just want to go on to now the whole question of how do we make a script that is designed to get distribution. But before I do, I just want to introduce myself. There are several people here who don't know me. And I just want to let you know my name is Joanne Butcher. I'm a business coach and I work with filmmakers. And what I really bring to the table is the business side of things instead of just the craft. I don't mean just the craft. But, there are lots of screenwriting teachers that you can study directing, you can study acting, you can study all these different things. You can take classes on lighting. All of that stuff is the craft. What I work on is the business side of things. And my background is that I ran a cinema. I programmed the cinema, so I chose all the movies. I had to pay the bills. That meant I had to get butts in seats. I had to sell tickets. I had a staff. I ran a $500,000 a year organization. I had to raise all that money. And I also had a film school that I ran that we taught filmmakers. So that's my background, and I realized that there are very few people in the industry who have both the craft side and the business side. Those two tend to not be joined. It tends to be that the craft is taught in film schools that are non-profit, and they don't really have an understanding of the way the business works. So what I do is I bring that to the table, and I bring my experience working with distributors, working with marketing films, and working with the concept of getting butts in seats. And every time I look at a script, I'm asking myself, how does this script get butts in seats? And that's really what I want filmmakers to learn how to do, is to think about getting butts in seats with their films. We all want audiences, and the way that we can quantify how well we're doing getting audiences is how many butts we're getting in those seats. Whether they are digital streaming seats or seats in a theater is inconsequential, but how are we getting our films out to audiences and getting them seen? And the other part of my experience that I bring to the table is that I was an expert in fundraising, an expert in filmmaking, and I became very ill and I didn't work for 7 years. The presenting thing was migraines. I had migraines every day for 7 years. And during that experience, I really learned a lot about strategy and about how to do things with less time, less effort, and less energy, but to actually be able to achieve the things that we want to achieve, in our case, making films. So how do we make films without killing ourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially? How do we actually get our work out there, but do it without, mortgaging our house and ending up in divorce and a lot of the things that happen to filmmakers because they don't have the right strategies in place to have their work really add up to something, instead of just sort of, putting a lot of effort out there that doesn't really add up to much. So I'm very focused on working with filmmakers and helping filmmakers be successful. And so, as thank you so much, Nani brought up, thinking first about distribution is the part that I would like to bring to the table right now. So how do we think about distribution before we make a film? Well, one of the things that I would say is that in order to really educate ourselves about distribution, we need to know what it is that distributors are looking for. So what is a genre that we know, that all filmmakers know that distributors are looking for? What is a genre that all distributors are looking for? And we know this. We all know this. No, Rolf, you can't answer.
Horror.
Who was that? I heard half a word.
I think my audio is bad.
Oh, it's no, who you got you now? We got you now. Oh, hi. Yes, go ahead.
Horror.
Horror, yes. So most filmmakers know that horror films will get distribution. You know, that's kind of generally known. Marilyn, what were you going to say?
Reality.
Reality.
Yes, reality.
In documentary, yes. Yes, definitely.
I was going to say horror and romantic comedies.
Who was that speaking?
Marilyn.
Marilyn. Oh, okay. Hi.
You called on me, but I didn't have a chance to answer. But
Yes.
I would say horror is number one, and then romantic comedies seem to be kind of I've gotten a lot of notices lately of people looking for romantic comedies, which is kind of cool.
What budget level is that?
Well, usually romantic comedies are over the 5 million most of the time.
Right. So that's a very.
But the horrors are nice because they're under 5 million, and you can get a really nice horror done for under $1 million sometimes.
There you go. So, when one of the distinctions I'm always making around in the film industry is that when we're looking at things, we need to know what budget exactly are we talking about. So, I'm going to go with under $300,000, which is the SAG ultra low budget minimum. What genres can we make at under $300,000 and get distribution? So we've said horror.
Documentaries.
Documentaries.
They're hot right now.
Documentaries, yes.
Animation.
Animation.
I know that's hard. I know. Yeah, I just thought about it, since you don't have to have actors, maybe you could save money from that perspective, but I can see how that could be expensive as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Animation is super expensive. The costs are coming down every day. And I now have 3 clients who are making feature animations. So I would say they're doing it for under 500,000, which is pretty amazing. But that is an expensive medium. So what did we say? Horror, documentary. What else did we say?
Drama.
Drama? No. Leanne, what are you saying?
I've seen in the chat someone brought up faith-based and also family films.
Faith-based, yes. And if we're talking about faith-based, what faith are we talking about?
Christianity.
Christian. Okay. Family films. Can somebody give me the definition of family films?
Mom and dad, wholesome. All right, I'm going to stop. Someone follow up.
Yeah,
The whole family can watch together.
Not R-rated.
Adults and children can watch together.
Okay, the magic word is children. Okay, in the industry, a family film is a film that is made for children. Wouldn't it be easier if they called them children's films? But in the industry, they're called family films. But yeah, Lassie is a great example, showing our age, Rolf. But so family means children's films, and the big important thing to think about here is that the lead is going to need to be a child under 12. You know, there are these kind of movies like Kindergarten Cop. That was Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think, where I guess Arnold Schwarzenegger is the lead. You know, and is Kindergarten Cop for kids?
What about Jumanji?
Oh, I don't know Jumanji, so I'm not a good one to answer about that.
Well, Jumanji did have kids as the lead, though.
had kids as the lead. Okay, so that's then it's a family film. I remember pitching to one of my friends who's a film producer, pitching a really nice story to him that had two children as leads. And he said, I didn't get past the log line. He said, it's not my business model. My business model is the leads have to be A-list actors. And so, a film where the two leads are children is not going to work for his business model. But you can make films at an ultra low budget level with children if you can work out the scheduling, because you can't have children on set for long days, so things like that. But family films are probably, and this is I think a very important thing to know, that distributors are frankly desperate for family films. I mean, desperate for family films. There is so little content because, however many filmmakers we have here, how many of you want to make films for children? How many of you are like jumping up and down? Yay, Karen! Yay, Daniel! Who else? Who else wants to make films for children? Yes, it's never very many. Brandon says yes, yes, yes. So, if this is something that turns you on, then that is really something to think about. The faith-based films, again, if that is something that turns you on, you should really think about it. There is a lack of faith-based films. There is a huge need for content. It tends to be American audiences only, not so much international. But, I have several clients making faith-based films, and when they found out that there was an audience and that distributors really wanted faith-based films, they were thrilled because they kind of had this idea that they could never actually make the faith-based film. They'd have to do something else. And when they found out, no, there's an audience for that, no, distributors really, really want that content, they felt liberated. Like, oh, I can make the Christian film that I want. I have a client who's making a family film that is also a faith-based film. And when I talked to my distributor about it, he said, oh my goodness, I feel like the cartoon cat with the dollar signs in their eyes going bing, 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 bing. So filmmakers are not necessarily in tune with these things that distributors are interested in. And so it's really useful to know that there's a lack of family films, there's a lack of faith-based films. If that is something that is appealing to you, please let me know when you finish your film, because we can get distribution for you like that. Same for horror. Thrillers are the one we haven't really talked about. Hey, Edward, how are you doing? Haven't seen you for ages. Family thrillers are my favorite genre, and that's also a very popular genre. And I think I saw somebody in the chat said crime thrillers, but that's, thrillers, crime, things like that. So those are genres that we know, even if you don't have big stars in them or big names in them, that you can get distribution. So,
Yep.
Oh, who was that?
No, I said urban crime dramas.
Yeah. So urban is the setting.
Yes.
Crime and thriller is the genre that the distributors will be interested in. Right? So, yeah, and urban thrillers, I think, are also doing micro-budget urban thrillers are doing particularly well right now on some of the AVOD platforms. So that's a useful thing to know about. If now, what if your film does not fit with those genres? Was it Shiva Kumar who said drama? Was that you, Shiva Kumar, who said drama?
No, I said rom-com.
Rom-com. Okay. So if you are working on a rom-com or a drama, now we're going to need to get to a different budget level so that we can put names in it. But basically, think about this. All the filmmakers are on here. Everybody wants to make a drama. Everybody wants to make a comedy. But now, because all the independent filmmakers out there are all making dramas and comedies, we're now in a place where there is huge level of saturation. And so because of that saturation, how do you rise above that? You can't. The only way you can rise above it is if you have names. And so if you think about it, if you think about the way Hollywood markets its films, it doesn't say, go and see this rom-com. It says, go and see George Clooney in a movie. You know, go and see Jennifer Garner and George Clooney. It doesn't say, go and watch this drama. So in order to, once you get into those those genres where there is this huge amount of saturation, the only way you can really create, you can rise above that saturation is by having names in your film. So Brandon says LGBTQ. So again, that is kind of that is the audience for the film, but still, if you can think in terms of those genres, that's really useful. One of my clients made an LGBTQ crime thriller. And crime thriller, is that right? Crime, yes, crime thriller. So we knew we would be able to sell the film as a thriller, but we could also market to an LGBTQ audience. So that's kind of double excellent, you know. But it's not a genre as such. It's the market for that film. So anybody here who is like, I don't care what Joanne says, I'm making a romantic comedy, I'm making a comedy, I'm making a drama. Anybody here who would like to talk about that? Let's see if we can find a way for you to move forward and actually make the money back on your film. Nobody's admitting it.
Well, I'm going to admit it a little bit. This is Jazz.
Hi, Jazz.
Hi. I want to do, of course, you know, like a documentary reality, and it's comical, but I think that's a good start for me. I do have another idea, like you said too before, that we have so many ideas as artists. Like,
yes,
I kind of want to start working on my next one, but I want to do this one first.
Yes.
And I think this one would give me the platform, because I have a great idea for a family film, faith-based, that can star kids and then bring in, you know, rom-com and racial injustice and all those things. That would be great. But I think my platform should be built before I get to that. So,
well, I think that's good. But the film that you're making now is a documentary, and so we will be able to identify the audiences that we're aiming at and market it that way. There's a path to marketing a documentary because you make a film about a certain audience. Let's use that last example, the LGBTQ audience. If we make a documentary that looks at some aspect of LGBTQ life, then we can market it to the LGBT community. In your case, we're going to market it to the African American community, to women. So we already know the markets that we're going to be getting it out to, and that's why documentaries work. You know, if you made I did an interview with a filmmaker who made a fiction film, and it was about women's arm wrestling championships. Did you know about women's arm wrestling? Did you know there's a thing about women's arm wrestling? Well, it actually started out from journalism. This woman wrote an article about the underground cult, I guess, of women's arm wrestling championships. And then somebody was so inspired by that piece of journalism that they made a feature film about it. I wish I could remember it now. It was one of our guests that we had on the Filmmakers Live, right? I'm not remembering the name of it, but there's actually a world out there that you can market to of women arm wrestlers. Who knew? But documentaries.
Hold on. I didn't know that. I knew that.
You knew that?
Yes, and I was actually asked to be one because I had arm wrestled a coworker. I wrestled him several times, and I took him down. Wow. And I hurt my arm, but I took him down, and my supervisor said, "Don't you ever do that again. You're supposed to be working." Oh, he arm wrestled it. For some reason, he thought I could arm wrestle him, like, because I'm going around big bad jazz. You better get in my face. I took him down, a whole man, every time he arm wrestled.
I think that's the scene in the movie, actually. I think that's what happens.
And that's what happened. And so then he was an arm wrestler. So he was telling me to get into women's arm wrestling. Yeah. But I'm like, my family already say I'm too boyish. So I'm trying to become,
Put that down, yes.
I'm trying to become faith-based.
Yes, exactly. Nice.
So,
nice.
I thought it was just funny.
It is funny. That's awesome. But I had no idea this world existed. But again, it's a world that does exist and can be marketed to. So when you're, I don't ever share all this stuff trying to say to everybody, you should make a horror film. It's not that. It's just that if you know that there are certain genres that you are going to get distribution for, does that inspire you to make a film knowing that you can get distribution? If not, that's fine. If you want to make your drama, want to make your comedy, that's great. But let's try and figure out a business model that is going to help you recoup that money, right? So, switching gears now. So we've thought about distribution. We've decided what we're going to make our film. We're going to raise our money. And, oh yes, thank you so much, Lexi. The Golden Arm by Jenna Milley and Anne-Marie Allison, who came on the Filmmakers Life and interviewed with us and told us about making that was their first feature film. So once you've decided what your project is, from the way I think, next thing you raise your money and then you get to making your film. What might be some things that you think you need to really think about and really plan before you make your movie? Give me some thoughts about what you really have to think about before you make your movie. Location, yep, that's very important. What else? Casting, very important. Yep. What else?
Marketing.
What was that? Oh, marketing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. What else?
Cinematography.
Absolutely.
I look at the incentives in the location. Incentives and rebates.
Oh, yes.
Filming incentives, tax rebates.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. What else?
Things you can get for free.
Yes, that's called producing. Things you can get for free. What else? What else are you going to think about before you make your first feature film?
Just anything that might be really difficult, like if there's an animal in the script, that would be like difficult to wrangle. Just elements that might be really expensive or difficult to pull off, and like, is there a creative solution to maybe do something a little more achievable if needed?
Instead of having a fox, maybe it's a stuffed fox. Write out or rewrite the expensive parts. Yeah. What else would you think about?
Someone said location, but like, is it outside or is it indoor?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. These are all really good things. I'm actually going to give you 2 minutes to write down, and we're gonna finish at half past the hour. But I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. We're going to have some brainstorming music, and I want you to write down the most important things that filmmakers should be thinking about in making their first feature. Just write down 3 things that you think that you need to focus on before you make your first feature film. And I'm going to time us for 2 minutes.
Usually bras. All right, that was our 2 minutes, our 2 minutes writing time. All right, so what other thoughts did you come up with? What do filmmakers have to focus on? Chris Paul.
I wrote this, but I realized I kind of wrote the same thing 3 times.
Oh yeah? What did you write?
I feel like I wrote, well, where is your film going? In other words, it's end game. Who's going to distribute it, or what is its marketing plan? They all sound kind of the same, though, now that I think about it.
But good. I'm glad you're thinking about distribution. That's excellent. Who else? Lava.
My mind also wonders how much prep am I going to get? I feel like whenever we go on a project and they don't give enough prep, it really causes the shooting to suffer a lot. So I often like to think about what happens before and after a film. So what's going to happen with post, what's going to happen with editing, and of course everything else other folks have said, such as locations and the cast and distribution and all that good stuff. And who's directing? Who's my director?
Yes, who's directing? You, I hope.
Oh, yes.
Who else? Edward, what do you have?
I said development, research prior to development. I know a lot of people start developing without doing research. So at the end of the day, when you get to the script, you just crash it straight into a wall.
Nice, nice. Daniel, what did you write down?
I did actors, script, location, distribution, budget.
Budget, nice, yes. Marilyn.
Besides all the things that have already been mentioned, and it's hard to come up with only three, but a big to do on the top of my list is always the legal aspect. All the contracts with everybody that it's going to be a big part of your budget.
Yes. Karen.
I put, like she said, the the legal part of it, because that's what I'm dealing with right now. And yes, and budget for the state that I've been doing everything in, the budget, and also yes, that's what I put.
Nice. Leanne, what did you put?
A lot of what people have already said. I think a big thing for me is just, I know people have said actors, but even if you're not able to get A-list talent yet, just really having that casting process where you're bringing in the performers that can deliver just an excellent performance, because at the end of the day, the audience will be watching them, and also just finding the actors that are the right fit for the role and can bring the sensibility to the screen that you imagined. I just think it's so, even if you're don't have access to Timothée Chalamet yet, you're still bringing a really quality ensemble. So to me, that's such an important step.
Yes, yes. Rolf.
Yeah, that's something I want to riff on a little bit more, because as independent filmmakers, you can set your own time frame and so on. So I'm a big believer in, when you got no money, you have the advantage of time. So the more you spend in advance before you start shooting, where you're not burning money, you have a huge advantage, where the studio system is the opposite. They're locked into timelines and schedules. So once they greenlight a project, it's go, go, go. And then they suffer from rushing in a lot of cases. And a lot of modern Hollywood people complain there's no time for rehearsal, which is one of the key things that indie people could do. So if you can find, just to your point about a good space where you can do auditioning and casting, I think you should also take advantage of that space, or any way you can, to then actually workshop the script and do lots and lots of rehearsals. And in that process, sort of refining the script with the actors. That's a huge thing that independent filmmakers can have as an advantage over the Hollywood system.
Yeah, and I love that idea of independent filmmakers having an advantage, because I think we tend to think that we are disadvantaged, but so there are ways in which we have advantages. Yes. Okay. So anybody else want to chime in? Okay. So for I'm gonna talk about my three my three picks. So the first one that I think is the most important thing is to be considering about raising money. And it's so easy for filmmakers to talk about every single aspect of filmmaking except for that, but raising money to make your film is really, really, really significant. And I talked earlier about looking at under low budget, according to SAG, ultra low budget is under $300,000. Somebody mentioned $5 million, $1 million. So the first question to ask yourself as a filmmaker is, what budget level am I going to work at? And the question then I would ask you is, and what money do you have access to? I'm going to use Leanne, because the other day one of my clients who's making a film at about $750,000, I said, well, at that budget level, we can certainly have name actors in our film. I wouldn't let anybody spend that much money on a film without having name actors in the film. but I'm thinking about names that maybe wouldn't roll off our tongues, you know, but people who are going to bring $1 million to the table, $2 million to the table. But the funny thing was, the filmmaker wrote back and said, what if we get Timothy Chalamet? I was like, where did that come from? You know, I'm like, do you know Timothy Chalamet? You know, is he your cousin? You know, so there's, you know, if you want to get Timothy Chalamet in your film, there's going to have to be the, you know, the word million in your budget, some million something, you know, in your budget. So, but whatever budget level you're at, you need to be figuring out how you're going to raise that money. And so, you know, you can decide, I can raise $30,000, you know. Ben Wheatley is this British film director, and he says, if you can raise $30,000, make a feature film. And I'm totally for that. Raise 30,000. In fact, one of the first times that I worked on a feature film, I made a competition. I had the very exciting title, Florida Feature Film Competition. And we gave $25,000 cash and $175,000 worth of goods and services to make a feature film. And with $25,000 cash, you can pretty much pay for the things you're going to have to pay for, you know, food, production insurance, certain things that you just can't get around that you can pay for with about, that was years ago, now I say $30,000 is the absolute minimum, $40,000. But you can make a feature film with $30,000 or $40,000 and produce the hell out of everything else that you bring to the table that was earlier called getting stuff for free, you know. My clients who make films at under $100,000, they, you know, it's like we were talking about the advantage, you know, we have a lot of skills to bring to the table. Often they're doing all their own post-production, or I had one client who made a film for $80,000, and his mom is a professional fashion designer and made all the costumes, you know, and then she showed up and cooked every day for everybody, and so she did all the food on set. So he produced the hell out of his film by getting his mom involved, and actually he's only about 24, but they've been working together since he was a teenager, you know. So produce the hell out of it, bring whatever you can to the table and decide, you know. I have some clients making films at, you know, $1.5 million. I have a client at about 3 million, 12 million, but if you decide on that budget, you have to have a business plan that is going to bring in that money, and then you have to be willing to do the work to reach out to your network in order to get that money. So it doesn't matter what your budget level is. You know, I got an email the other day from somebody who teaches filmmaking, and it said in it, the most important thing a filmmaker needs is to know their budget. So you need to hire a line producer to find out what your budget is. And I'm like, no, you need to decide how much you can fundraise and then figure out what your budget is. So if you have access to $12 million, by all means, go and raise $12 million. But if you want to be getting investors who are going to be interested in putting in that $12 million, you need to know how it's coming back. So Timothy Chalamet may very well be the right person for that film, you know. but without some kind of planning like that, it's not going to work. So the fundraising is essential. There is nothing that's going to happen if you don't have some money. And, you know, people say, oh, 30,000, 40,000, 60,000, 80,000, it's nothing in terms of filmmaking. But you know what? If you have $60,000 and something goes wrong, with your movie and you end up having to flush $60,000 down the toilet, that is a lot of money, you know. And I think that a lot of times filmmakers are thinking, oh, you know, I only have $100,000, you know, it's not enough. And I'm like, $100,000 is a lot of money. There are places in the country you can buy a house for $100,000. You know, so I think it's really important to know that even if your budget is super micro, that really that's a lot of money, and you need to be spending it very, very, very wisely. You know, I have a close friend who made a documentary for $300,000. It got into Sundance. It won the Audience Award at South by Southwest and got an amazing distribution deal with a big distributor. And I have documentary filmmakers come to me and give me a budget of $700,000 for their documentaries. And I'm like, you're gonna need to do a little work to justify that budget. You know, that's your first feature film and you're making a documentary for $700,000. Why? You know, why? So really be thoughtful about your budgets and what you are going to spend, and think about how much you can raise, and then whatever that number you land on is, make sure that you have a business plan that is appropriate for that budget level. So the next thing that I think that, I mean, I don't think anybody said this in their lists of things that filmmakers don't think about when they're making their first feature, and I think is the one that really sideswipes people, is people management. And again, if you've been making short films and you have to live with some jerks for a day or two, you know what? You can make it through. But when you're on a feature film and you are dealing with people for, you know, those few weeks that you're on set, but you're also dealing with people for months and months and months and months, you know, you have to have chosen your people very, very, very wisely. And I don't think that there's anything more important than people management. I see it with my clients. I see that their people management skills have to really up level on their first feature, and it's always things that they haven't expected. You know, there are issues about you know, people trying to sort of take over projects. That's one thing that happens. There are people who show up on set and just are not carrying their weight. That's one. There are people who call themselves producers and think that means that they're gonna, you know, as my friend would say, sit back and smoke a cigar and look really important, you know. But you know, especially when you don't have a big budget, from my perspective, you cannot afford to have even one person who is not carrying their weight. Not even one person. And I'm not somebody who's like, I don't care if people, you know, I mean, if you look at the movie Tangerine, which was produced by some of my friends, it was a very, very, very low budget film, but it was ridiculously successful. If you look at the end credits, he says producer, 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 producers, 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 producers. Goes on and on and on and on. And I don't care. I mean, fine, whatever. But I know who really produced it, you know. And as far as I'm concerned, the people who really produced it are the people who came up with the money, you know. Those are the people who really produced it. But but you know, give people titles, whatever. But I swear, the most important thing that you will learn as independent filmmakers is that you must have people who are 1,000% committed. to the film. And probably the only person who's really going to be 1,000% committed is you. Everybody else is going to be a little bit down the scale, or a lot down the scale. And that just turns out to be something that's incredibly important. And keeping all those relationships flowing, having people be happy on set, these are things that are super, super, super important. Treating people really well, you know, and that means feeding them well, making sure that they're not working ridiculous hours, and I believe absolutely everybody's getting paid. You know, they may not be getting paid huge amounts, but they're getting paid. They're being treated as professionals, and you expect them to behave like professionals. And if they are not, they are out. And you have to be willing to fire people. And I think that that's somehow a skill that people find very, very difficult. Very difficult. And it's not, I mean, you know, I have a lot of clients making feature films, and it's not that it's happened on every single set by any means, but it certainly has happened, you know. And as, you know, Leanne was telling the story about losing their DP before they got on set. But one of my clients, he has a film in distribution now, but on day 3 he had to fire his sound guy. He had to fly in a friend of his to take over because the first AD was just freaking out all over the place. You can't have a first AD who's freaking out, you know. And he had to take this action, very, very decisive action, to clear up those situations. I had a client, we had to fire the producer after we had finished shooting. Another client, we had to fire a director halfway through the shoot. And hey, you know, Darryl F. Zanuck ended up making Gone with the Wind with the third director. You know, so again, it's not like it's only as a result of having a small amount of funding. It's just that if you are going to really get your film right, you're going to have the right people. And I actually believe that the smaller the amount of money you have, the more important it is that you have the exact right people. And one thing that I know is that you cannot pay the wrong person enough money. You cannot pay the wrong person enough money. The wrong person is never going to be the one who's going to show up for you, you know. So it's almost like the challenge of having a very small amount of money also helps you find the right people, because those people will fight for those jobs, you know. They will fight to be on your set. They will fight to come and shoot your film. They will fight to come and direct your film. They will fight to come and act in your film, you know, even though you're not paying top rates. And I always say, you know, you can't pay top rates. Nike can. Let them go work for Nike. You know, they can go and earn their top rates somewhere else. They get to come and have their creative experience working on your film and having the experience of working on a feature, and grow themselves professionally as well, right? Leanne, did you have a question or that?
I didn't mean to interrupt. Just really wanted to add really quickly, just in my, I know only made one film so far, but that if there's that gut feeling, I found that it's not going to get better, you know. And I'm not saying don't give people a real chance. I'm just saying that I noticed, and we had to let we had to let our script supervisor go. If you really are getting that, and those vibes are there that are really not gelling with the crew, like, it really doesn't get better, and it actually will get worse.
That's right.
So I think, like, you know, you don't want to be callous, but sometimes you have to kind of like cut your losses before it corrodes even more.
So true, so true. It will only get worse. It will only get worse. And so identifying that as soon as possible and taking that action, that decisive action, is, that is everything. And so the third thing that I want to talk about is to do with pre-production and prep. So I think it was Edward who talked about this. So making sure that you have your scheduling software and all of that stuff taken care of is really, really important. Edward, what software do you use for scheduling?
I actually use a bunch of stuff for scheduling depending on the phase of the film. I use Celtics because it has a lot of building stuff, and I use oh God, can't remember from the top of my head the name of the software. I can remember. I'll write it on the chat as soon as I remember. Studio Binder? No, there's another software. I can't remember right now. But I use Celtics a lot. And well, using my board, remember? Like, I put a lot of stuff on my board. My wall is like with a bunch of boards.
And nice wall and a lot of post-it notes. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm now using Studio Binder and
Studio Binders.
Yeah, I have that for my clients. So anything else anyone uses? I see Ryan, Movie Magic. Yeah. So, but also the software by itself is not really going to help you. It's the prep work that goes into it, that's going to be helpful. Bye, Lexi. Thank you so much. I'll just be finished in a few minutes. But so one of the really important things that I've noticed happens a lot with filmmakers, and this kind of comes under people management as well, is that whatever prep we do before the film, the first AD walks on set and says, I don't use that software, I want to use mine. And I have now trained my clients to say, no, we will be using my software. So let's have everybody say this. No, we will be using my software. Why do you think that's important? Why is it important that you use the scheduling production software that you want to use? Why is that important?
Because you're very familiar with it, and sometimes you cannot change, and you have to learn another software so you can learn what they do. So that's one of the reasons.
Yep, excellent. Any other reason? Karen, are you trying to say? You're muted if you're trying to speak. It's not unmuting.
I was trying to unmute it. I had the little Yorkie poo here bothering me. But anyway, I think it's wise to use your own, from what I've learned. Kind of like what the last person just said, because it's yours, you know it, and everything, and it's just well, for my age, I just feel like it helps me to know my own stuff, to use my own. If y'all understand what I'm saying about that.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Anything? Any other reasons? Well, Rolf, go ahead. You're muted.
Alberta said maintain your ownership, and I'm guessing that's where you're going with this. In other words, if somebody bails on you and they've done all the editing on their stuff and you can't get hold of it, and you kind of lost control over it. So that would be a reason.
Yes.
You want to keep it on your system.
Yes. And Marilyn?
I'm kind of on the same line. Since you're the producer and everything is your fault if it goes wrong, you can make sure nothing slips through the cracks that you're not, because of something you're not familiar with. And when you're using your own software, you have a better handle on all aspects of what's going on, and you're not going to get blamed for something going not correctly.
Yes. And so, earlier on, people were bringing up things like legal documents and, things, all of this work that you're doing to create a feature film, which is a business you know, and it's your job as the producer to have all of that under your control. And so, and I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this, where um, even my clients who I've told, I've had them practice, no, we will use my software, and then whoosh, they hand it off to somebody else. And who is in control of the budget? Is it the first AD? No, it's you. It's your film. And you are the one who's going to have to answer to when bills are not paid, budgets are not right, documents are not in place, and so on. And so if you have a software to use, like Studio Binder, which is just where I'm at right now, but then you can keep everything in one place. And when it comes to delivering your film to the distributor, you're going to have everything in one place. Okay, so those are my three things that filmmakers tend to not be thinking about: fundraising, managing people, and making sure you have total control of your production software. So thank you everybody for coming. And I am a business coach, as I said. I work with filmmakers. I would love it if you would set up a time to come and talk to me about working together. I have a whole process that we go through so that we take you from, you know, concept to distribution, and the main pillar in there being fundraising to go through. So please, please, please set up a time to talk to me, and we can talk about working together. Basically, you know, the whole beauty of working with a coach is to just save you time and save you from making all the same errors that every filmmaker makes. Before COVID, I had a month where I had 4 feature films in production in 1 month. So I've been through this process over and over and over and over and over again. And so there's no reason to have to reinvent the wheel or relearn the wheel, whatever that is, you know, or to learn by making mistakes. I mean, we all learn by making mistakes, but we can eliminate those mistakes, a lot of them, by just, you know, working with somebody like me who has been through the process many, many, many times. So this is formally the end of the class, but we can hang out and chat for a while. And Edward, what is it that you wanted to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, guys, all of this is not just so that you get a budget and make a lot of money in the film industry, okay? This is research on how to make a film, not get in trouble, and that means that no one dies on set. Safety first, no matter what. It's research that every single move that you make on set is safe for everybody.
That's great. Yes, thank you for that. Thank you. Yes, I know most of you here. I think Brandon, I think we've met now before. Karen, I think it's the first time. Megumi, I have not met you. Zia, what a great name. I wish my name was Zia Ziprin. That's awesome. Kareem Mans, Catherine, we haven't met. Oh, Victoria, we haven't met. So what did you take away from this evening? Bye, Chris. What did you take away from our time together? Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Oh, I took away a lot of great information. Learning, what they're looking for out there, for distribution, like horror, documentary, that is very important to know that, because when, as a producer, and writer and everything, you're study doing, if it's a passion, normally you it's a norm for you. And it's good to know where you really is not like wasting your time, especially if you want something to get out there to, make it to the theaters or to get picked up. You really need to know these things. So that was one of the most important things to me. And also, you was talking about the 7 steps for future films. That's some great information because as an independent filmmaker, a lot of us, we don't know those things. Well, I'm around a lot of them, and I know some of the information, the things that you said tonight, I haven't ever heard of. I don't usually hear this kind of teaching when you come into, whether it's Clubhouse or whatever. You're not taught these things. So
Yes.
I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate it because you basically are getting what I was trying to teach. And part of the problem is that, and it came up early on today in the class, is that when you ask a question and you actually don't know, are you talking about a $5 million movie or a $50,000 movie? Are you talking about, one of my best friends makes $5 to $8 million movies, but the way that he makes those movies is not the same way that he made his first movie when he had $250,000. Not even remotely. And he, I have an interview with him, Jamin O'Brien, on my YouTube site, and he always makes that distinction. But you know what? Nobody makes that distinction.
Right.
So all of the information, which I'm not saying anybody is overtly lying, but it's actually really useless information, actually, because it doesn't apply to every situation. And I spoke to one of my clients today who's on his 8th feature, has made a series, and we're raising $3 million to make a documentary. But I would never be working on raising $3 million with somebody making their first documentary, because it doesn't make any sense.
That's what I was told when I went to a film. It was a film festival, but also it's more of a class, the way that Andy did it out in Nashville. And we were there for a whole week. They had us out there. And when I went in to pitch a certain series, it was actually a series about, the LBGT that I'd done. And they liked it. And I don't know if anyone ever heard of Ruth Harmon them, but they were so excited about it. And they came in there, when it came to the part of how much I put into it, how much money that I spent to get this together. And when I told them, it's exactly what you said, they was like, their eyes got big. They was like, we know you're learning and all that, but it's no way I would have put that amount into, so what I've come to learn is that you need to know when you're writing and you're making, doing a project or content, you need to, because just because I put that amount of money in there don't mean that the next distributor they're gonna come and say, no, we're not gonna pay you for that. Not that kind of money. So that's what I've learned, and I really thank you for teaching us that tonight.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Joanne. I wanted to as well thank you so much for inviting me to your class. I met you on Clubhouse briefly yesterday, and I am just so overwhelmed and thankful for all the incredible information I have learned in the last hour. I am definitely going to be in touch with you. The best way to do that would be through your email or website.
Yes. So if you want to book an appointment with me,
Mm-hmm.
go onto my calendar. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Can you see that from where you are? I just put that there.
Yes, thank you.
And then also, just for everybody, I'm teaching a 2-day workshop on the 26th and 27th of May, where we're going to go through the steps to get to production. 7 steps to get to production. So that's a 2-day workshop. It's $27 whole. So,
I think I can pull that together.
You can?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. That's
Awesome.
wonderful.
Yeah, and Karen, here is my calendar, so please do book a time to talk to me. Where are you based, Zia?
I'm based in Manhattan.
Okay, and Karen, where are you?
I've just relocated to Dallas, Texas from Arkansas.
From Arkansas. I have a client in Arkansas called Karen.
Do you? Oh, I bet you it's my friend Karen.
Karen Reese?
Karen is I bet you it's my other friend Karen, because it's we're with WIFA, Women in Film. She's African American lady, is she?
Yeah.
Yes, that's her. I think she wants to give me your
amazing.
information.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Daniel, where are you? Oh, you must be in San Francisco, or is that just
I'm
a
in
Zoom?
Georgia, close to Atlanta.
Oh, you're in Georgia. Okay.
Yep.
Lovely. Lovely. John Dean, I'm afraid we just finished the class. So, but I'm glad to meet you. Kareem and Manos, where are you? Manos, I think, is somewhere along
I'm
the...
in Albany, New York.
Oh, okay, you're in New York. Not the person I thought had the foreign...
And I definitely want to thank you, because I have two script ideas that I was toying with.
Yeah.
And based on your conversation on distribution,
yeah,
there's definitely one that I'm going to focus on a little bit more now. Hopefully to take to production. So thank you for that.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, that's the other thing. Once you know about that there are certain paths that are going to get you to distribution, then it also helps you make choices. Because, like, I remember last March, I had this funny experience where I got like 6 clients all at once. Every single one of them said, I've got 2 scripts, I don't know which one to pick. And I had to read 2 scripts from each of these 6 people. And then we made a decision. But it really helps to make a decision which is your first film as opposed to which is your second film, if you know that one of them is going to get distribution, whereas the other one, it might be better to do as a second or a third film. So that's really useful information. I'm going to mute you, Zia, because it keeps making a noise on your line. Yes, excellent, Kareem. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Joanne.
Yep.
Oh.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I found out about you through I believe his name's Kevin Pontutit.
Oh, yes. How did you know Kevin?
I'm in the Largo AI cohort, and I saw one of your emails that caught my attention, how to not do crowdfunding. So that is something that's on my radar. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting anyone, but that got my attention, and that's all I want to say right now. And I'm happy to share any information or resources with anyone in this.
Awesome. Well, one of the things, please, John, set up a time for us to talk.
Okay.
I teach my clients 7 different ways of fundraising. But if my clients are open to it, I love for them to do a crowdfunding campaign, because it's such a great way of getting visibility for a film. But I also have a very specific methodology that I do, so that it's not something that is as the words I hear from filmmakers who do crowdfunding campaigns without me is, I hear the word brutal. I hear that it's brutal. I hear that it's killer, things like that. And when we do crowdfunding campaigns, it is none of those things. None of those things.
I just find it to be a high risk, potentially low reward. If people have been building their careers, I've been doing this for 20 years, and you raise $1,055. I have a banker in Taos, New Mexico, and it's like begging someone for $10.
Yeah,
I don't know where
we do crowdfunding. That's not the way
Yeah.
we do crowdfunding. No, I have my super beginners raise $11,000 or $12,000 to make their first short, and then I have clients raising $25,000 to $65,000 just in crowdfunding, but we have a methodology that is guaranteed to bring in the money.
Yeah, I do see the positives of getting the word out about your film. So that's, it's like free marketing, so to speak. But, again, if you are begging against not your...
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But let's talk about it, because
Yeah.
that is something that I love to get. I love when my clients agree to do crowdfunding, but we go for money we know we're going to get, and it's a very positive experience, and I see my clients grow tremendously by the experience, but they're always successful in their campaigns. Always, always. Victoria, we haven't heard from you. Where are you located? Maybe she can't unmute. And Faith, I think that you're in Trinidad, and I think you had the time wrong, maybe, because we're an hour difference right now from Trinidad. So I'm sorry, but we've finished class. We're just hanging out right now.
Hi there. I'm in Ventura, California, just north of LA.
Oh, hi, Victoria. Lovely
Hello.
to meet you. Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I hope you got some good stuff out of
I
it.
did. I might be setting up an appointment with you sometime.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So, yeah, John and Faith, I'm sorry that we finished by the time you arrived. Lexi will get the recording out to the people who had signed up, so you can see the class if you like. And for my clients, I will see you all soon. Tomorrow we'll be on Clubhouse at noon Eastern. I have a group where all the moderators in the Clubhouse are people who've already delivered a feature film to a distributor. And so we talk about feature film stuff. And everybody else, please join me on May the 26th and 27th for the 7 steps to getting your film funded, produced, and distributed.
Joanne, one last question before you go.
Please.
When do you like to get involved with the client? At what point?
Oh, that is a great question. I prefer if they have not written their script yet.
If not, not written the script yet?
Yes, I prefer if they have not written their script yet, because were you here at the very beginning of the class, Kareem?
No, I missed like the first 10 minutes.
Okay, so the beginning of the class, we were talking about how so every problem nearly with any film that doesn't work can be fixed at the script stage. So I don't see the point of making a film with a script that isn't fixed. And again, I don't mean to say, oh, we have a perfect script or something like that, but just that anything that will get in the way of getting distribution. Let's put it that way. And the example I've been giving recently, I have these clients, they're raising $1.5 million to make a family film. And it's a really cute story about these kids who are in a small town, and aliens come and kidnap their their school principal. They're all less than 12 years old, right? So we defined a family film at the beginning, children's film. It's for kids. And they're a couple, director producer couple, and they are really smart. So we're giving them feedback on the script, and I pointed out to them that in their opening scene they have 2 teenagers who are making out in a car when the aliens arrive in their small town. And I was thinking, teenagers making out, family film. And then It's just a 2-page scene, and then right at the end of the 2-page scenes, the girl says something overtly sexual. And I'm like, okay, if I'm a parent watching this with my 6-year-old, I just turned off the film. But the truth is, the parent with the 6-year-old would never get to see the film because the film would never get distribution. And so they would have spent $1.5 million to make a film that could never get distribution. Right? So that's the reason I like to work with filmmakers before they've written the script. Because then we can write the script and just make sure that any errors like that can be resolved. Because how long does it take to write a new 2-page scene where the aliens arrive?
Right.
Maybe an hour, So for an hour's work to save $1.5 million.
Very good return.
Right?
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah. So, I work with clients who have not written a script. I work with clients who come with a script, and then we can do that couple. They did not have a script when we started. I'd say 70% of my clients don't have a script when they come, they start, and then some do, and then the first thing that I do is I give them feedback on the script, and then we have my group of clients give them feedback on the script. So again, we can just address anything like that right at the beginning, and then we go into fundraising.
Can I ask a question about that film with that budget? How much of that went on stars, quote unquote? Because you've always reminded us in order to do anything above, say, 100K, you have to have name actors.
Yes.
So how much went on name talent?
All of that is negotiable, and I don't know the specifics in their case. They happen to be very connected to very well-known actors. But all of that's negotiable. So you can go with, I'm not sure what the budget level is, 1.5, what that is in SAG. Let's call it, it's not low budget. It might be low budget. Let's call it low budget. So what that means is, and we were joking before about Timothée Chalamet. So let's say they could get Timothée Chalamet in the movie. He is allowed to work at scale at whatever 1.5 million is. And then obviously Timothée Chalamet is not going to be happy with scale. So you can pay him more money, or you can pay him points on the back end. So you can always negotiate all of that, but technically he can work at scale.
And do you know what scale is in that bracket?
You can just Google it and you'll find out.
I didn't know
Just
that.
Google it, you'll find out. And so the example I always think of is Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
There was only $1 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
So what did they do? Spend $1 million on Scarlett Johansson?
Right.
Hell no. No.
Mm-hmm.
They spent $1 million on production. Scarlett Johansson worked at scale and would have got points on the back end.
Because she obviously liked the project and was willing to do it low budget. So what you're saying is SAG actors can't go below scale because that's a union rule.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
So with our ultra low, under 300,000, with my under $300,000 clients, we can pay them scale, which is about $200 a day for ultra low budget, and we can pay them more than that, and we can pay them points on the back end. So all of that is negotiable, but they have to be paid scale.
Sure.
Right? But I figure if SAG says that they can work for $200 a day, then we can pay them $200 a day. That's fine. Okay. So I think I'm going to go and have my dinner. And we will talk soon. And I will see you hopefully on May the 26th and 27th. And save up your $27.
I'm working on it now.
Working on it. That's right. Actually, I'm also going to have a VIP ticket where we're going to have, in a very little group, we're going to do a craft your logline workshop for $77. So I love doing that. I love crafting log lines and honing that in. That's one of my superpowers. So anyway,
awesome.
I will talk to you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy filmmaking. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.